What's up, YouTube? It's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another video. Man, there's a lot of trade rumors going on right now, and I decided, of course, since we are in the middle of the NBA offseason, to make the video that everyone wants me to make, and that is, who are the stars that will be trading in the following weeks that could really make a difference for the upcoming season? Make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell because I will be dropping videos on this channel much more often with all of the news that is dropping for the next following weeks. The draft is coming up. You also have free agency, and of course the NBA season is literally right around the corner. So you don't want to miss out on all the content that I will be dropping on this channel. But with all that being said, let's get right into the video because I do have a lot to talk about. First, we have Chris Paul. After failing to win a championship both in Los Angeles as well as Houston, there was a lot of questions about the type of productivity we can expect from the future Hall of Famer, largely due to his age and injury history, and because of this, there really weren't that many suitors out there for CP3 in last year's offseason, but the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to pick him up, mainly because they were also able to receive a lot of draft assets in the process as well. Now, luckily for Chris Paul, he has proven a lot of people wrong last season. Not only is he coming off of an all-star and all-NBA caliber season, but also he was able to lead the Oklahoma City Thunder to not just a respectable record, but also push the Houston Rockets to a Game 7 in the first round. Granted, that's not that far, but taking into consideration the situation that the Thunder were in, that was definitely exceeding expectations. Now here we are, and after coming off of a quality season, the future Hall of Famer does seem to have a little bit more suitors out there in contrast to last year's offseason. The two teams that have been in constant conversations about acquiring Chris Paul have been the Phoenix Suns or the Milwaukee Bucks. When it comes to the Milwaukee Bucks, they are a team that structurally it makes way more sense, as well as potentially putting Chris Paul in a position to win a championship within the next year or two. More importantly, when it comes to the Bucks, they're certainly looking for someone who is a ball handler and a shot creator so they can start making the right steps in the right direction to win a championship. But unfortunately, financially speaking, as well as assets, they really don't have much to give to OKC in return for Chris Paul. And then on the other hand, we have the Phoenix Suns, who have way more assets and also way better younger players to put in a trade package to receive Chris Paul. So in terms of OKC, it actually makes sense. Also, in terms of the Phoenix Suns, it could potentially make sense as well, largely because they are an organization that is looking to make the right steps in the right direction to start competing in the playoffs, as Devin Booker is at a stage of his career where expectations and the standards that need to be set for this organization have definitely started to increase. And if the organization isn't able to meet those expectations, then within a few years, you could easily see Devin Booker starting to demand trades. Unfortunately for Chris Paul, though, even with him being introduced to this team, as well as some potential improvements with Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, and DeAndre Ayton, I still don't think that this organization is going to make it beyond the second round. So yeah, for Chris Paul, it could fit for him structurally, but in terms of winning a championship, it definitely is far removed from the perfect situation that he wants to be in. Up next, we have Jrue Holiday, one of the more underrated players in the NBA, and for people out there who aren't aware of his game, he's a quality backcourt mate with practically anyone in the NBA, largely because of his versatility. He's extremely productive on and off ball, but more importantly, defensively is where he really separates himself from a lot of other players that will be available in this upcoming offseason, regardless if it's trading or signing for them. Also, when it comes to Jrue Holiday, his contract situation is definitely much more manageable than someone like a Chris Paul, James Harden, or Russell Westbrook. So who are the teams out there who are trying to get him? You have rumors of the Atlanta Hawks, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Brooklyn Nets. When it comes to the Atlanta Hawks, they definitely have the trade assets that the Pelicans potentially will be looking for with all of the young players that they have on their roster. But unfortunately, I really don't think that that will be the best thing for the Hawks, largely because Jrue Holiday will only have 2 more years under his contract, so it could be a very short rental. And more importantly, I don't really know if Jrue Holiday can really raise the ceiling for an organization like Atlanta to the point where I don't even believe they'll be in contention to make it beyond the first round, and that is if they make the playoffs, with the Eastern Conference potentially being a bit more tougher. Speaking of the Eastern Conference, we're going to stay out there and talk about the Brooklyn Nets, and that's been one of the teams that has been consistently talking about acquiring Jrue Holiday over the past couple of months now. And honestly, I think it is a fantastic fit. Defensively speaking, the Brooklyn Nets have a massive problem on the perimeter, especially in the backcourt. And when it comes to Jrue Holiday, like I stated before, he's extremely versatile, so he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands, which allows Kyrie to do what Kyrie wants to do. But more importantly speaking, the Brooklyn Nets are in a perfect situation to still give quality assets to the New Orleans Pelicans, who are trying to build a solid core with their 3 young players out there with Lonzo, Ingram, and Zion. And the complementary pieces that they could receive from the Brooklyn Nets are almost extensive. And then finally, we have the Dallas Mavericks, yet again another organization that needs a little bit more defensive presence in the backcourt. Luka Doncic last year was amazing, and putting him in the backcourt with a versatile guard such as Jrue Holiday should really not only allow him to continue to be great, but also allow somebody out there to stick on the responsibility defensively on the opposing team's best ball handler. I actually believe this is a great marriage as well, but I do question the type of players that the Pelicans should be receiving in return from the Dallas Mavericks, and I highly doubt they're going to be of the same quality of players that they could receive from the Brooklyn Nets. But regardless of where Jrue Holiday goes, please do not allow this transaction to go underneath the radar, because I truly believe Holiday can make a significant difference on any team that he is on. Okay, let's talk about it. Russell Westbrook. Because I know for a fact many people clicked on this video because they wanted to know my thoughts on his situation, because it's extremely unique. So last year's offseason, after failing to make a finals appearance, the Houston Rockets decided to mix things up, traded Chris Paul as well as some draft assets to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and in return received Russell Westbrook. A decision that was very questionable at the time, and it became even more questionable by the middle of the season because the Houston Rockets decided to go permanent small ball and traded Clint Capella, and in return received Robert Covington to give the most space imaginable to both James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Unfortunately though, that didn't work. Matter of fact, they didn't even make it to the conference finals because the Houston Rockets got knocked out in the second round by the Los Angeles Lakers. And I'm pretty sure some Westbrook defenders will point out the fact that he was injured, but honestly, that is another problem in and of itself when it comes to trading Westbrook, because Westbrook not only is someone who plays a very specific style of basketball that needs a specific type of player around him to complement his style of play, but also Westbrook is 32 years old. He's owed over $40+ million for the next 3 years of his contract. And we're talking about someone who's uber athletic, who again just dealt with an injury that completely side railed his type of productivity that he would normally give you in the playoffs. So what do we expect from Houston? Honestly, I don't know. But when it comes to Russell Westbrook in particular, I would assume that the Houston Rockets, if they're willing to trade him, are looking to hit the restart button and receive as many young assets and flexible contracts as possible. Because of this, teams such as the Orlando Magic, the Charlotte Hornets, and the New York Knicks, in my opinion, should be top priority, because those are all organizations who would willingly allow Russell Westbrook to play any style of basketball that he wants to play, especially because those are allegedly some of his demands, and also they have the assets to give back to Houston when it comes to flexible contracts and draft assets. More importantly, when it comes to the Orlando Magic, we're already talking about a team that has consistently made the playoffs in a weaker Eastern Conference with the 8th seed, and they have been desperately looking for a ball handler and playmaker for the past couple of years now, and I do believe Westbrook, alongside Evan Fournier, Terrence Ross, and Nikola Vucevic, should be a really good fit for him, especially when it comes to floor spacing. But honestly, I don't know what any of those teams can do for Russell Westbrook outside of allowing him to play the style of basketball that he wants to play. And I would assume that Westbrook is at a stage of his career where he would want a little bit more than just statistical accolades. But hey, what do I know? But it will be very interesting to see not only where Westbrook goes, but more importantly, what Houston receives in return, because I do believe that will speak volumes to what they will do next, and that is how they address James Harden. Now, I know for a fact there's a bunch of Houston Rockets fans that are going to tell me in the comment section below how Harden is already committed to the Rockets, but honestly, he doesn't really have that much say-so in this situation. Not only are we talking about a new general manager and head coach, but if his co-star decides to leave and a bunch of the role players that he's been playing alongside with have complained immensely, then honestly, the most logical decision would be to just trade James Harden anyway. Now, the only way I could see Harden staying on the team is if the Rockets have the ability to trade Russell Westbrook to, say, the Clippers, and then they receive in return another star caliber player in Paul George, and that way you can pair PG with James Harden. But outside of that hypothetical transaction, again, trading Harden just makes the most logical sense. Furthermore, when it comes to Harden, honestly, I do believe there are easily more suitors out there for his style of basketball and what he's able to do than Russell Westbrook. The best team out there, in my opinion, would have to be the Philadelphia 76ers, and trading him to Philly and in return the Houston Rockets receiving Ben Simmons and a bunch of other assets. Personally, not only do I believe that is the best fit for Harden, largely because this is an organization that already has another co-star in Joel Embiid, but more importantly, they have pieces around both Embiid and Harden that can give them a bit more depth and complexity to the offense that we've seen in prior years when it comes to any offense that has been ran by Harden. Also, when it comes to the coach, I believe Doc Rivers should get a better version of Harden than Mike D'Antoni was able to, and more importantly, Daryl Morey is in the front office of the Philadelphia 76ers, someone that I would only believe that James Harden feels extremely comfortable with when it comes to general managers or some type of front office executive. And finally, with these last four players, I'm going to be extremely short with them, largely because I don't necessarily know if I would classify them as a star due to their questionable productivity. These last four players are Gordon Hayward, Victor Oladipo, DeMar DeRozan, and LaMarcus Aldridge. What's even more interesting is that all four of these players are on expiring contracts, which makes it even more difficult for me to predict what team is willing to trade for really any of them. The only player that I am somewhat interested in is Victor Oladipo, largely because if a team like the Milwaukee Bucks are unable to receive Chris Paul, which I do believe is becoming a bit more realistic, largely because they just don't have the assets for him, I do believe pivoting to Victor Oladipo would also be a great option for them, not only because of the fit, but also because of the financial limitations that this team has moving forward if they do not acquire another expiring contract. And with Victor Oladipo and Giannis coming off of the books in next year's offseason, that gives the Milwaukee Bucks a tremendous amount of flexibility to continue to add to this team if Giannis decides to stay on this roster. But more importantly, Oladipo and the Bucks is a great fit for everyone because it not only gives Oladipo a great chance to prove himself and potentially win a championship, but it also gives Milwaukee a great three-point shooter who can also handle the ball and shot create without giving up too much on the defensive end if they decide to trade Eric Bledsoe in that transaction. But with all that being said, people, please let me know what you think about the video in the comment section below. I do believe this offseason will be a doozy. So please make sure you hit the subscribe button, notification bell to be updated on all the videos that I will be dropping on this channel. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.